Debbie, welcome to the podcast. First of all,
Thank you,
how are
mate.
you?
I'm doing very good, and I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to the pod. And how are you, mate?
You know what? That's probably one of the first times people have asked me how I'm doing.
You're the host. You should be fine as well.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say, to be honest, because like I've just mentioned beforehand, I don't know too much about Ruben Amorim, so I'm hoping that you fill in them blanks. But let's start with Jurgen Klopp. Obviously, you're a big Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
Um, you're based out of Lisbon. You live in Lisbon. You're a big Sporting fan as well. What was it like for you as a Liverpool fan based in Portugal when
hmm
Jurgen decided to leave and break all our hearts that day?
Well, I that day still lives very vividly with me. I was at work. I was working from home, and I was like doing my business, and I was on Twitter. The first video came in, and I was like, okay, I will click. I watched. First, it felt like some kind of prank, some kind of joke, but then the full interview, that half an hour interview that came in, and once I realized that it was real and that it would happen, and that Klopp would leave us at the end of the season, and especially knowing that this season was like a clean slate, and I was
Mm.
looking to the season to like, okay, it's Klopp 2.0, it's Liverpool 2.0. He's here for the long haul. So yeah, that left me heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. I was left shattered. I couldn't work for any other minute that day, and I was like watching old videos, for example, Klopp that's celebrating his 5 years at Liverpool and bawling my eyes out. But I expect that every fan, not only based on Liverpool but all around the world, must have felt a little bit like me on that day.
Yeah, obviously we've been to Portugal a few times under Jurgen, and we haven't. Well, we have actually. We've absolutely annihilated Porto and Benfica a few times. Um, how was the news in Portugal when that news came out?
Well, I believe that in Portugal and in all of Europe, because Klopp is a very well-known manager. He was when he was at Mainz. He was especially when he was at Dortmund, and
Mhm.
now at Liverpool, his name got bigger and bigger. So every news, every sport news outlet in Portugal was like reporting the news. The feeling about the fans, well, they of course understand that football is a sport with lots of pressure, with lots of expectations. So for them, I believe they didn't feel anything. They, of course, I have a lot of friends that the first thing they did was text me like, Debbie, how are you feeling? You must be, you must not, you are not doing okay for sure. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing bad, but in Portugal, of course, that's we all know that players and managers' career are not eternal, so people
Yeah,
take
that's
it
right.
as it is.
Let me say, would you say the Porto and the Benfica fans will be quite relieved?
I believe that's especially the Porto ones because in the last few years on the Champions League, I believe that last few years twice it was like 5-0, so they will be very very happy. The Benfica fans and as well, so they won't have to face the club's Liverpool, but they might face Amorim's Liverpool, and they won't be
Exactly.
happy as well. I hope.
Well, that's right. So obviously, where did your affection for Liverpool come then? Obviously, you're Portuguese, you live in Lisbon, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. It's nice to hear a little background on, how people did get to support the club
hmm
that, listen, I only knew that it was in Liverpool and that was the end of it when I was growing
Yeah.
up. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for me, it's actually quite interesting because I'm from Lisbon. I grew up in Lisbon my whole life. In Lisbon, we have that would be clubs, the Sporting and Benfica. So you are either from Sporting or from Benfica. and my family was actually splitted. So at the time, I grew up sporting, but my dad is a Benfica fan. So we had to find like some common ground for us to discuss football, and so you was the one who got me into football in Portugal. It is very common to spend weekends watching like La Liga or the Premier League, and my dad was very keen to watch the Premier League. So I usually spent my weekends watching football games with him since I was very little. And then it's quite strange because and that's why it's such a passionate thing for me, because I was watching game after game and seeing team after team and just vibing with the product that the Premier League is. And one day I actually fell in love with the club, with the fans, with the atmosphere, with hearing Anfield, with hearing You Never Walk Alone. And at the time, I started searching a little bit more about the club. It was like around, I believe, 2005. So I got to experience the Istanbul final from a very
Good timing.
young, yeah, from a very young child's perspective, and from that point on, I never stopped, and yeah, and actually there is a very funny thing that Sporting and Liverpool have never played against each other. They have met once on a friendly in 2011, if I recall correctly, but they have never met. So I never had to choose, and for me. um, and so yeah, that's a little bit of the background, and then I never stopped following Liverpool, and
That's good.
now
That's
I'm
good.
here.
Okay, so nice. There we go. Welcome. So talk to me about Sporting Lisbon. Then before we get into the manager himself, I'd just like to
Hmm.
know a little bit more about the club under Ruben Amorim, and the style of play, the fans'
Hmm.
opinion on how they play, and obviously the talk of Ruben Amorim potentially moving to Liverpool. How is that sort of going down? So if you want to sort of start with the style of play that he likes to play and how the fans feel about that.
Hmm. Well, in terms of style of play, um, usually sets up in like a 3-4-3. With three center backs. They are ball playing center backs. They are not afraid to carry the ball up to the pitch, which is quite good. Then he has two wide wing backs that usually have some defensive duties, but are not also, but that's usually like to go up to the pitch as well. On midfield, usually a Marine sets up with a defensive midfielder that is like the blockage between.
Yeah.
It's like the first line of defense after after the center backs. And a creative eight that really depends because Sporting has a lot of different midfielders, so the setup really shifts depending on the eight they are using, and then a front three with a sole striker. So in terms of also a very good thing that may get the Liverpool fans excited. Sporting isn't afraid to press. So whenever they lose the ball, one of the first goals is to get the ball back as soon as possible. So the lines of pressure are not as high as clubs are. I don't think that in the world that exists, but that is a team that isn't afraid to press. And the since the role of the CDM and the center backs are so well defined, there is actually a little bit more on solidity on the back that allows Sporting to play like this. So I think that in terms of fluidity and in terms of style of play is very attractive, and I think that the Premier League pace will suit him well.
Okay, that's good. That's so the Sporting Lisbon fans obviously beforehand, you know, take no offense to this. This is just how I see it from an outsider's point of view.
Of course.
They're a big team. They're a big club in Portugal, but it seems to be like they're sort of trying to keep up the pace with Porto and Benfica.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's brought the league title back to Lisbon.
Yeah.
He's probably a god there now. How do the fans feel about the possibility of him actually moving to Liverpool?
Well, that depends on which fans you ask. If you ask a Benfica or a Porto fan, they are stoked and very, very excited for that to happen. If you ask a Sporting fan, the answer will be very, very different because, like you were saying in the beginning, actually, the before I was born, Sporting was very up to speed with Benfica at Porto,
Yeah.
but in the 2000s and in the 2010s, it was more like Porto versus Benfica rivalry, and Sporting was always left behind.
Mm.
Um, Sporting won their last title in 2002, and then only 19 years later, Ruben Amorim brought the title back to back to Alvalade. So the way we feel about him is, of course, very very special, and not only because he brought the title, but he also, and that's for me and for most of the Sporting fans, is one of the most important things and one of the things why we love him that much. He brought peace to the club. So
Mm.
not only Sporting wasn't winning on the pitch, there were a lot of issues within the club structure, some wars between the fans and the board. So the club wasn't united at all, and of course that not winning doesn't help when things are not good in the background. And when Ruben Amorim came, he came with a sense of unity. He came with a sense of, okay, I have this job, I have these players. At the time, Sporting had to make some big sells. I think that Bruno Fernandes left for
Mm.
United the year before. He was uh, one of Sporting biggest players at the time, so he had to rely a lot on the youth, a lot on the academy. And one of the things that he said in his first interview, in his first press conference, was, well, I see that people are doubting me and saying that, okay, things may go wrong, but let me ask you a question. What if things go well? What if things go right for us? And so they did. So it was like a messiah that year. And during the 4 years that he has been with the club, things are going very well. So of course that Sporting fans will be heartbroken if he leaves. So let's see about that.
Yeah. So when you've just spoke about how he was when he came in and
Hmm.
things like that. I mean, people who are listening to this when this goes out will be thinking that it sounds the exact same thing as what happened when Jurgen walked into the door at Liverpool, which is kind of exciting because obviously we're losing not only a football manager, we're losing someone who's brought the club together, brought the
Yeah.
fans back together, created a dynasty on the pitch and a legacy and created legends that we'll be able to talk to our grandkids and things about and family for years to come. Um, I'm excited by the prospect of having him in the club. How do you think, let's take your Sporting cap off and your Liverpool cap on. If he does get the job, how do you see him translating into English football?
Um, well, in terms of first, I would like to tell you what I think, how I think he will set in the
Yeah.
Liverpool setup, because one of the good things about Ruben Amorim, and I don't know if you knew that, Ruben Amorim, before being a manager, he was a football player,
Mm-hmm.
and he played the majority of his career for Benfica, and Benfica are Sporting biggest rivals. And one of the things that he first did once he came in was like to put all of that Benfica past behind him and immerse himself into the sporting culture, immerse himself into into the club, and I think that I see him doing the same thing with Liverpool, and I believe that these are the things that sits well with Liverpool fans to see not only a good manager that plays attractive football, but also a passionate manager that engages with the fans, that tries to understand the club and tries to learn about the club. So I think that it would be a very, very good thing for us to see. In terms of him being in the Premier League, well, actually, I think that it's about time Ruben Amorim gives that next step. His career
Okay.
isn't that long. He's only managing for about 5 years, but in these 5 years he has accomplished a lot of things. 5 6 years, 6 years I believe. He has already accomplished a lot of things. So I think that's like Mourinho did in the past, like some other
Mhm.
Portuguese managers did in the past, and in Portugal some news outlets are already calling him the next Mourinho. I don't think he's that. It's very very far. It's very very far away from that. But I think
Good.
that yes, very very good. But it's more like in the comparison that he's a good manager. He will
He's
do
Portuguese.
his
Yeah,
Portuguese, and it's the comparison that reporters have. So I think yeah, I think that he's prepared to go to the Premier League. Another good thing about Ruben Amorim, and that may excite the Liverpool fans because we all love Klopp's press interviews and the way Klopp communicates. And actually, Amorim changed and was almost almost it was almost like a revolution on the way he communicated with reporters, with fans in his press conferences. He's very well spoken, very witty, so we also can expect that.
that's good.
A lot of honesty, a lot of hard truths, but a lot of heart as well.
That's
So
good.
I think that it would be good and
Well,
good for the
that's it,
Prem as
isn't it?
well.
Yeah, exactly. So we're losing, obviously, not only Liverpool, but the Premier League is losing a massive
Yeah,
character. And we're so used to seeing these managers come out and say the same thing over and over again. It's boring, it's repetitive, isn't it? And hopefully, if this does this does happen from a Liverpool perspective, it'd be nice to have a new character in the league. It'll be nice to have fresh ideas. I like the idea of three personally. If we could keep them fit, a back three of Kanate, Virgil, and Joe Gomez is fantastic,
that would be
especially with
spicy. Yeah,
Quansah, and then who knows whether it's Trent on the right and Robbo on the left, or who knows if it's Inacio centre back. We don't know. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on. First of all, it's been brilliant to meet you. We've engaged a lot on
of
social
course.
media and stuff. Hopefully, this does come across well, and we do get him over the line, because I look at it now and I don't really see anything else or anyone else out there that sort of fits the bill in terms of the person that we want more than the
Yeah, me
football manager.
neither.
So,
I see reports about De Zerbi. I see reports about
mm,
Thomas Frank. Some shouts on Nagelsmann. I really think that Mourinho is the right fit. I feel that. Of course, that is not Klopp. He will never be Klopp. And the first times, even for me, I on the first week that I heard about Klopp, I was like always thinking about that. Now, sometimes I don't remember, and I just enjoy the ride for
yeah,
these final games. Of course, that fans will have to understand that maybe the beginning isn't that sharp or that fast as we want. Hopefully, it is. But I really do hope that if he comes, and I hope that he does, that fans embrace him and that fans give me they give him the space to thrive, because I have seen him do it, and I think that he can replicate that with the brilliant Liverpool squad that he will have into his hands. It would be very very good to see that.
perfect. Okay, let's call it a podcast there. everyone can find Debbie on social media. I don't even want to try and say your full title name, so I'll let you go with that one.
That is just good.
Debbie's just good. Okay. Thanks very much for your time. I'll
Thank you,
catch up with
mate.
you soon. Thank
It
you.
was lovely. Thank you. Cheers.